All right, I'm here with Senator Joseph Silk, and I'm going to ask him some questions about SB13, the Abolition of Abortion in Oklahoma Act. Kind of want to get into the depths of this bill so that everyone who supports abolition across the nation, and especially in Oklahoma, can really understand what's being said and done and how they can get behind supporting it. So, first things first, what exactly does SB13 do?
So Senate Bill 13 defines life beginning at the moment of conception or fertilization and says that the intentional taking of that life, abortion, is classified as homicide.
So it's straight up, abortion's...
It's very straightforward.
Murder.
Very
Murder.
straightforward. Abortion is murder.
So abortion is defined in the bill. It says the act of using or prescribing an instrument, drug, medicine, or any other substance, device, or means with the intent to cause the death of an unborn child.
Correct.
So what's an unborn child? When does that begin?
At the moment of fertilization. So every stage as that child develops is listed. The intentional taking of that child is listed as murder. So we're talking about from the very moment of fertilization at conception is what we're protecting.
So we're not protecting children whenever they got like a heartbeat?
Nope. Before that.
When they feel fetal pain?
Before that.
Wow.
It's actually at the moment of fertilization.
Okay, all right. So consistent human being, unborn child, if you intentionally take their life, this is murder.
It's taking the exact same rights that a human being at 3 years old all the way up to 90-year-olds has, and giving those same rights to a child that has not been born yet.
Fantastic. So are there any exceptions for abortion in this bill?
No, there is no exceptions. That all the typical pro-life legislation you've seen in the past for exceptions for rape, incest, in case of the life of the mother, there is none of those exceptions. Because we're not here to provide exceptions for murder. What we're doing is classifying abortion as murder.
All right, let's talk about the difference between pro-life and what you called an abolition-style bill.
Okay, so pro-life bills are what we've been doing for the past 40-something years since Roe v. Wade. And pro-life bills, it's so important for listeners to know this, that pro-life bills are actually making things worse when it comes to abortion. We've been doing them for 40 years. This is where your money's behind it, all your pro-life organizations. When you pass a bill that says you can't kill your baby until after you listen to an ultrasound, or you can't kill your baby for 72 hours, or whatever it may be, that's essentially codifying the illegal and illegitimate Roe v. Wade opinion. And that's why we've got to turn completely away from that, because abortion, the only tactic that will work to actually stop abortion is to 100% abolish it, not regulate it and allow it. So any pro-life bill that's passed in any state that does anything other than abolish abortion is making the problem worse.
Yeah. I think in Oklahoma we recently passed a 72-hour waiting period. Which I think we've passed before,
right?
But it was hailed. I remember scrolling through Facebook. It's like 72-hour waiting period passed, and the court's gonna like let it go by. And I'm just looking like this is premeditated. Like you can murder your babies by abortion in Oklahoma so long as you premeditate it for at least 72 hours.
Right.
And but of course they celebrate these things. They tell their supporters, look how pro-life I am. I mean, are you running into this a lot when you say, "Hey, I want to support my bill"? Like you're going to get behind it.
Right.
You run into a lot of people saying, "Well, yeah, I support every pro-life bill," and you have to kind of correct.
Right, because that's the deal. And like a big deal a couple of years ago was Oklahoma, the big pro-life organizations and the Tony Lowingers of the world that were behind a specific bill was you couldn't kill your baby if you found out it had Down syndrome. But my question on the Senate floor to Senator Treat, who's now the pro tem of the Senate, because he was running it, I said, but you can kill it if it's doesn't have Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And yes. I mean, the answer was, well, yeah, you could kill a healthy baby. But so that whole...
Or if you had a Down syndrome baby that you wanted to kill, you go in and say, I'd like to kill this baby.
Right.
And they say, is it because the baby has Down syndrome? No, it's just because the baby's...
And that's one of the big hang-ups is, for the past 42 years, Oklahoma has a lot of pro-life statutes on the books that Senate Bill 13 actually repeals. So part of the issue that I've had with legislators is they'll read this bill and be like, well, how can I support that bill?
Yeah.
Because it's taking out pro-life legislation. And I have to explain to him that pro-life legislation is protecting the abortion industry. And so we've got to take it out and say abortion's murder, we're not doing it anymore. It's really simple, but for some reason you have to break it down.
So to be clear, your bill not only abolishes abortion as murder, making it criminalizes abortion, but it also says all of these sort of pro-life regulatory laws that say you can get an abortion if you do this, or if you do it at this place, or if your doctor has these kinds of privileges. It repeals all of those.
Well, yeah, and you have to. So that's like, it's sad because there's all these pieces of legislation in here that the pro-life industry is so proud of, but we have to take those out to actually abolish abortion, because you can't say abortion's murder, but you can't do that. You got to remove those useless pieces of legislation and then say abortion's murder.
So what do you do with that? I mean, most people are going to say, well, I'll get behind this bill as long as you allow us to abort babies conceived in rape. What do you do with that?
Well, life is life. So that line of thinking says that, okay, human life deserves protection unless it was conceived in a bad circumstance. That's not for human rights at all. So essentially, there are bad situations that take place, but you have to, is a fertilized egg a human life? And if it is, it deserves protections no matter how it was conceived.
So no rape exception. What about life of the mother?
No rape. Yeah. So no rape exception in case of the life of the mother. Nothing in this bill prohibits doctors and medical professionals from engaging in typical triage. Their duty as a medical physician is to protect all life. That's what we expect them to do. Most pro-life legislations, because they're useless and gutless, offer an exception for doctors to just do the easy way out and abort the baby. This bill doesn't offer that. So basically, their job is to protect everybody, no matter what.
Another aspect of the bill, somewhat related, but a lot of concern about this sort of clause that's the bill, you will not submit to federal court challenges. You're going to ignore the Supreme Court. You're going to ignore court challenges to this bill. What's that all about?
So what this bill does is basically it says we're going to use state sovereignty to enforce this bill. So this is protecting human life is a state issue. So we're going to pass this bill. The governor's going to sign it, and if somebody wants to take it to the federal courts, we're not going to do that. We're going to protect human life in Oklahoma. That's what this bill says.
But what about the federal branch? Like, what about the executive branch? Sorry.
Well, it's the best way to look at this bill is, and a lot of people don't make this parallel, but it's just like slavery back in the day. The same Supreme Court that once ruled slavery was legal and that slaves had no rights is the same Supreme Court that is ruling that unborn children have no rights. So what happened then was abolitionists said, no, the courts are wrong. We're going to make sure that everyone has the same rights, and that's what this bill and this movement does.
So if we pass the bill in Oklahoma, and President Trump and his cabinet or somebody in Washington D.C. said, "Hey, listen, Oklahoma, unless you allow the killing of children there, we're going to withhold federal funds. We're going to punish you."
Well, I don't think this administration won't. Now, he said clearly that abortion should be a state issue. So, politically speaking, if Oklahoma passes this bill, what we're going to see is the federal branch, especially the executive branch, and the Trump administration is going to say it's a state issue.
So you think that's a empty threat, or
it's not even a threat from this administration?
They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do anything.
So, have you found any co-sponsors, supporters of the bill in the Senate?
Yeah, so in the Senate we'll have some, and we've been working with some House members to find a House member to carry it. And unfortunately, you do run into things that are very discouraging. You'll talk to guys and they'll be like, "No, I'm totally pro-life, but I don't know if I want Senate Bill 13
that's the problem, dude.
Yeah, the abolition of abortion to hurt my reputation or hurt my chances to re-election."
Right.
And unfortunately, we had legislators way back in the day, whenever they were trying to abolish slavery, that had the exact same mentality. Yep. I can't support the abolition of slavery, because it might hurt my reelection
Right.
possibilities, or it might tarnish my reputation because I'm willing to defy the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, in Oklahoma, you have representatives and senators who do that, and it's really sad and discouraging.
Yeah, I mean, my experience has been that, you get a mailer for your local guy, it says 100% pro-life. You say, oh, well, I know about Senate. I'll call him up and message him and say, hey, are you going to get behind Senate Bill 13? And usually says something like, well, I got to talk to leadership about that. You're running into that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just like a person talking to his rep, it's the senator talking to the fellow senator.
And last I checked, as an elected representative, you need to represent your people. You're not actually working for leadership. We all represent the exact same amount of people.
Consent of the leadership, the will of the leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, well, I'll run this bill later after I've been in the Senate for a while.
Right. And then they never will.
Standard excuses.
Yep.
So what else is going to keep this bill from being heard?
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of roadblocks that could transpire. In Oklahoma, a committee chairman. So in this case, Senator Jason Smalley is the chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee. I've been talking to him, but he does have in the rules, the authority to say we're not going to hear the bill. I hope that's not the case.
But you've talked to him before, and he has told you that he believes abortion.
He does. Yeah, we've had conversations that he believes life begins at the moment of conception, and the intentional taking that of life is murder. And so we'll see where that conversation goes. But he does have the authority to say, no, we're not going to hear the bill. If that's the case, it's dead, and it's over. So progressing from there, then it has to go to the Senate floor. When it goes to the Senate floor, you have to deal with the floor leader and the pro tem, because they kind of have the authority in the rules to say we're not going to hear that bill. Yeah. And the same thing in the House.
As a supporter of the bill, the way that sounds to me is that Jason Smalley, for instance, has the ability to bring this bill to the floor to get a vote from the Senate, or he has the ability to sort of table it, ignore it.
Right. Well, he has the ability to bring it to a committee vote, and if the committee
passes it,
if the committee votes it down, the committee votes it down. But he did his job in letting the legislative process.
So it's not his fault. No, but if he doesn't bring it, then to me, just as a supporter, it seems like the reason that abortion remains legal in 2019, 2020 is because Jason Smalley didn't allow it to be voted on.
Yeah, exactly. That's the very first thing is the bill. So the
Jason
bill's
Smalley, then to the committee, then the Senate.
Yep. And then it goes to the House, and it goes again.
Yeah.
So the bill's been drafted, great language, it's been introduced. So now we're going to filed, and so now the first thing it has to do is get a hearing in the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. So if anybody has relationships with the committee members or the chairman, that's going to be where the very first hurdle is.
So those of us watching this bill, we're basically going to be paying attention to where the bill goes and figuring out who is responsible for keeping abortion legal.
Exactly. Somebody will be responsible for killing the bill somewhere along the way, whether it be a committee, an individual person, the entire Senate,
go all the way up to Kevin Stitt. Kevin Stitt signs it. Governor Kevin Stitt, for those of you who are watching this that are not in Oklahoma, said that he would sign any bill that came on his desk that was against abortion.
Yep. And I haven't talked to him personally about this bill yet.
Yeah.
I will. It's on my agenda to do. But he did say he would sign any type of life legislation. So we'll see.
All right. So maybe the final question. What is it going to take to pass this bill?
So it's going to go through the typical legislative process. We have the bill, we've drafted it, the wording's solid, so it has to go through the Health and Human Services Committee in the Senate. It's got to get a full Senate vote, and then it's going to go over to the House, and you're going to have to go through the House of Representatives Health and Human Services Committee, and then a full House vote, and then Governor Stitt hopefully will sign it. And then once that's done, abortion in Oklahoma has been abolished.
So the key to moving it through that process would be
a lot of involvement. Legislators don't like big bills that really do really important things like this. So we're gonna need a lot of involvement to stress the importance and the necessity of this bill to legislators.
So if you had written a bill basically saying that red plum jelly ought to be the Oklahoma State jelly, that bill would just find its way
it's gonna fly
through the Senate, to the House, to the governor, sign red
That's right. It's gonna fly through.
So that kind of bill moves through, but a bill
Absolutely.
saying we should criminalize abortion and protect all human beings equally in Oklahoma.
Exactly. It'll be difficult. It'll be very difficult to pass this bill, but with the right pressure and the right education,
Right.
it's possible.
But you are a senator in Oklahoma, an overwhelmingly pro-life state. Pro-lifers dominate the House, the Senate. We've got a pro-life governor, lieutenant governor. They all run on pro-life. Why won't this bill just sail through?
Well, because this isn't really a pro-life bill. This bill is a bill to actually abolish abortion. A pro-life bill is a very easy vote that doesn't really cause a lot of waves, such as you can't kill your baby for 72 hours, or you can't kill your baby before you have to listen to the heartbeat. Then you can. Those are real easy votes. So all of your typical pro-lifers are going to vote yes. They get to go home to their district, wave how pro-life they are, hook up with the pro-life organizations like the Tony Lowingers of the world. They're going to give them an A+ rating so they can go campaign on. But it actually didn't stop any abortion at all, period. They're just going to continue to skyrocket. This bill would cause major waves in Oklahoma because it would literally shut down the practice of abortion immediately.
Yeah. So what we need to do to support this bill, is to not just rally, not just sort of get behind it in the sense of, hey, I like and share stuff on Facebook, but actually call legislators, our senators, our representatives, email, call, post, tag, say, hey, we want you to get behind Senate Bill 13. We don't want you to mess around with all this sort of pro-life regulatory stuff. We need to do that. What about sort of presence at the Capitol?
Yeah. Absolutely, because it's really crucial to think about who your legislators are hearing from. They're hearing from the big business people who don't want Oklahoma to abolish abortion at all, because they just don't want anything to disrupt any of the business transactions or anything like that. That's who the legislators are hearing from. Those are the political donors. So what the legislature needs to hear is they need to hear from the people of Oklahoma to say, we don't want abortion in Oklahoma anymore. And we're watching how you vote, and we're watching if you support this, because 90% of the voices they hear up there are not the right voices.
All right, so I'm excited about this bill. I know that abolitionists around the nation are excited about this bill, getting behind you and supporting you. We will have much more to say about this bill. We're going to be launching a website to support the bill, trying to produce some commercials for TV, for radio, do everything that we can to make sure that people know what's in the bill, that you're carrying it, and what we can do to support it. Our next big event is January 12th. Senator Silk is going to be presenting this to public audience, answering questions in Edmond, Oklahoma.
Yep.
You ready for that?
I am. I'm excited about it.
Do you feel the love
Absolutely.
from Oklahoma?
Yeah.
From pro-life Oklahoma?
Pro-life Oklahoma, no. But normal Oklahoma people, absolutely.
Yeah. There's the number of abolitionists is growing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so we're excited to support it, and we're hoping that everyone watching this video will like, share, get behind this video, go to the website, and let people know about it.